My awesome guest today, Michelle Kuei, is my mentor coaching client, and I am so excited to have you on the show. Welcome, Michelle.
I am so excited to be here. It's been an amazing journey, and thank you so much, Jeff. I'm so blessed to have come across you and also with your help, and it's been a learning process and a learning journey, and you are there, every step of the way. So I'm really, truly honored to be here.
Yeah. Well, this is great. Before we went live, we're sitting there and there's all this energy back there, like backstage and everything like that. So let's get into this, Michelle, and I'm going to give a little preview. This is Michelle's book that I'm holding.
And I have one too.
And we're going to get into that to a minute, but before we get into the book and that stuff, let's take you back to, really so we said about 10 months or so when we first started working together.
5 months. You and I only worked for 5 months.
I thought the book was 5 months. Okay. So yeah, anyways, so time frame wise, 5 months, and talk to us about where you came to me, why you came to me, why you was okay, I need Jeff's help. What was the place you were in where you needed my guidance?
So I was in Mod 2, I remember. I got introduced to your Quick Start program. I was thinking to myself.
That you went to, for those who don't know.
At IPAC. So then after Mod 2, I was thinking, oh my God, this is a great program. I've learned so much just through watching your webinar from IPAC. But then after Mod 3, graduating from IPAC, I thought about, I have no business knowledge whatsoever. I never started any business. I don't know how to market myself. I don't know how to start a website. I don't know how to do anything. So I'm just sitting there and thinking, and I was panicking. I thought, well, I need to do something about this. And if I'm a coach and I believe what I do, then step number 1 would be hiring a coach. Now, who do I hire? So for me, it was more of I need someone to be there and not just to hold my hand, but really provide that guidance in terms of, Michelle, this is what you need in order to publish a book. What are the steps I need to publish a book? So it was more about, tell me what to do, Jeff.
Yeah.
And I was panicking. I was sitting there and I was panicking. So when I reached out to you, it was in that panic moment where I don't know where to start. I need to start somewhere. And, I spent all this investment in myself. Then, where do I go from here? I need to do something more. And what was that something more led me to you, my great mentor.
Yes. And so a lot of it too, right? It was because you knew you wanted to write a book. And then it was just it was structuring your whole business from the ground up, right?
Yes.
And the marketing plan and what do we do and how do we talk to people? And that's really where we've been of late. How do we get your message out there? So we started from there. And so in 5 months, we've done a lot, to say the least. Talk about the beginning of it all, in terms of what were some of the things that we started helping you structure that started to give you some clarity and guidance, so you knew what to do each and every day.
Mm-hmm. So step number 1, I didn't know how to approach a client, what niche, they call it niche, right? Yeah. What tagline do I use to start talking to people? I'm a coach, but what do I do? Exactly what am I selling to clients? That was my struggle. I didn't know how to sell to a client or how to sell, period. So I need a very specific clarity in terms of what is it that I'm selling and who am I selling it to and where is my audience? How do I find them? So everything that you just said, who do I sell to? What am I selling? And where do I go to find these my audience? And that was my number 1 struggle where I didn't know where to start, period.
So how have we helped you with that piece? So now what do you understand now that you didn't, let's say 5 months ago?
What I understand now is I know exactly who my target audience is. And I'm helping women who's going through life experiences, life changes where they don't have a lot of confidence. They have a lot of fearful judgment. And you help me crafting all that to come up with the specifics. And I think it's really important to come up with the specific. And now that I have the specific of how to sell, how to approach, what is it I'm selling? If I'm selling an apple, I need to have an apple to sell in front of people. Now I have the apple to sell.
Yeah. And what was it like? Tell me about this. Because when I hear it, when we talk about your headline, right, from listening to it, someone might say like, oh, well, it still can sound general, right? So what was it that we helped you with that makes it so clear and specific for you, especially when you communicate it? Because I know it's a lot more specific in terms of the way you understand it. So what makes it specific for you?
What makes it specific for me was it was speaking of who I am. It spoke about my journey. I had a lot of fear. I had a lot of fear for judgment. And it was crafting, my coaching is really crafting based on who I am, very specifically using me as the brand, what sounds personal to me, and that's who I'm helping. And I think it's really important to have a connection to who I am. It's a representation of how I overcame all my struggle, how I overcame my adversity, and that's who I'm helping.
Yes.
So you help me identify what is it about you, Michelle, that you can use yourself as the brand to help your client, to help people who need your help. And that becomes more narrow. It becomes more specific rather than just general. Oh, I'm helping women, overcoming their fear. Yeah, everyone has fear, but it's more relatable to me. I was there. I felt it. I went through it. And this is where I am today. And this is why I have the skill, I have the credibility of helping you to overcome that fear, because I went through all that, and it's in my book.
Yes, we're going to talk about that because you have an amazing story, to say the least, actually. So what I'm hearing there is, and this is what I really want people to understand is that you can take a general statement like helping women work through fear, right?
Yeah.
But it can make it so specific because it comes from your story and who you've been, who you were, who you've evolved into. And that process is it's the message that you share with them. And that's where you've been able to find through your audiences is that they start to understand specifically how you can help them when they hear that message.
Yeah. And I noticed, the way that you help me identify that specifics from myself, that's relatable to myself. And nowadays, when I approach client, it sounds more genuine. It sounds more natural. It sounds like it really came down to the bottom of my heart. This is who I am. And therefore, I'm standing in front of you. I'm very passionate about how I can help you. So let me help you. Yeah. And you help me identify that.
What was different before? So like before when you were, let's say you even had the same statement, right? But you didn't understand the story behind it. What felt maybe disingenuous about it before versus, like you said, now it just feels authentic? Like, can you compare the two? Because I know there's a lot of coaches out there listening and watching that are going to be, who are in that spot of like, they have to come up with their elevator speech, so to speak. And it's like, I have to have this, rigid niche, and it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah. So what was different before, just like everyone else, graduated, I know I need to have a niche. I came up with a niche. And when I said it, it didn't sound very genuine because it almost sounds very scripted. It felt scripted and it didn't feel very authentic. It didn't feel natural. And when you don't sound authentic, when you don't sound genuine, it come across that way. And we, the way I was taught at IPAC is that it's energy, right? So the energy that you translate over, it's entirely different from before versus now. It sounds very genuine. It's part of me. And it's something that I truly believe in because it's relatable to me through my journey. And now I'm sharing with you. So there's it's less scripted. It's not scripted. Mm. So you speak from the bottom of your heart rather than, it's something that, oh, this is how you approach a client. Here you go. Just read the script.
Yeah. So let me ask you this now. Let's get into the work. So in the past 5 months, like I can say honestly that you are right up there with like a small percent of people that do the freaking work. Michelle, like it doesn't matter what I say and how much I give her, I can just load it on and do this with reaching out to there, creating a spreadsheet, setting yourself up for events, things like that. Talk about some of the details in terms of the behind the scenes work and grit that you've done to set yourself up for having the events that you've had. And we're going to get into the book in a second, launching the book and having those events all the way up to leading up to, if you will, your first paying client. Talk about the grit behind the scenes that no one really gets to see until they're doing it themselves.
So Jeff is a great challenger. So he threw so many challenges at me. and I remember there's so many things that we talked about in terms of, okay, so Michelle, you want to stand in front of the audience, you want to be out there. So how do you do that? And so I had to come up with ways of how to bring myself and send myself out there and in the public. So there was a lot of me sitting down and trying to figure out what are my options to be standing in front of the audience. So what kind of group that I need to reach out to. So we created a spreadsheet, and you have taught me to, each event, each organization, each person that you speak to, you log it, create that spreadsheet and keep it running. And every time you speak to that particular agency or particular person, you keep going back and updating it. So I have a spreadsheet of all the people, all the organization that I go to, that I spoke to, that would provide the opportunity of me inviting me as a speaker or helping me hosting the event. I have a spreadsheet of all that, and that's all created behind the scene. It took a lot of work, and a lot of time I would come to the session and I would say, Jeff, I don't know, they're like, I don't know who to go to. And we would go through that again, and we would go back to the drawing board. Okay, go back to research again. Where are some of the places that you can see yourself that's related to your niche? So there's a lot of research and looking up and finding places and networking with people that create that wonderful spreadsheet, and a running spreadsheet, really.
And then it's not only creating that, but then it's actually you hitting the pavement, so to speak, making the calls, showing up face-to-face, networking events. Because, and again, I've lost track of how many, but you've done at least a handful of events over the past 5 months. You've flown somewhere. We walked you through so talk about you've done events.
Yeah. So in August, through that whole process, I was able to connect with, people, and they invite speakers. So I remember in August, through that process, I went to Michigan, and it was a women empowerment event. And so I spoke at the event, and it was a group of women empowering each other, and my niche really fit into that scenario. And throughout the last 5 months, I also hosted workshops here in the local community at a women's club, where I get exposed to a group of women, and people would come in. I did a vision board, and it was amazing because everyone sat down and we created our vision. People were happy. They brought it home, and we did also goal setting. And through those workshops, comes my client leads, and it was that's just 2 examples of it. And then I have another event coming up, and I'm already looking into January in 2020. So it's going to be a larger audience where I get to stand in front of 100 to 150 people. And it's just going through and doing the work. It's a slow and long process, but it really pays off. It really pays off.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing is it's a slow, long process. It can be tedious at times. I know the calls you come to, you've never had your spirits down like you felt defeated, but you would be frustrated at times. And we've got to talk you through that, talk you through different strategies that work for you that you feel good about. And I think that's the biggest thing is as we start to talk about the book now, and the launch of the book is with the launch parties that you've had and things like that, it's just it's finding the places that can host it. It's the inviting that you've done. To all of the events there was some that you said in Michigan where you showed up and that was an audience you went to, but the majority of the events you had a place that hosted it and you invited to it, and the amount of people that she's on the phone, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, and the inviting that you've done to get people in the seats, the work that you've done is exactly what it takes. So let's talk about this book. This is hot off the press as of last month.
Yeah, August.
Yeah, so this is and I have your handwritten thank you card. I'll keep this forever. And obviously this is in my library, but talk about the process of the book. And you churned this out, in really 4 months or so?
4 months.
Yeah. So, and myself having written a book in 3 months knows and I think I said in the beginning, I'm like, man, you can have this book done before you even know it. And you did, you cranked through it, but.
Yes. And you said that.
Yeah. That's the type of person you are. Like I give you an assignment and it's just like, next thing you know, you're like, okay, I set it all up. I'm doing it. It's like, we talked about the book and next thing you know, it's like, it's half written. So talk about the process of the book first, and then we'll talk about where we got with it.
Yeah. So I always knew that I wanted to write a book, but it was never set in stone. I didn't know what to write. And after I got certified as a coach, that writing a book idea got stronger because it's a great tool to use, number one. But that idea, going back, that idea of wanting to write a book, it's always been there. It's always there strong. So I remember brought it into our session, and I said, hey, Jeff, I think I need to write a book. And you immediately jump on it. Okay, let's talk about that. And I said, well, I always had this idea of writing the book, and I'm not exactly sure what to write about. How do I approach it? And then so we brainstormed a couple of the idea, and one of the idea was, well, how do you feel about telling your story? Because your story is really a compelling story, and I think that a lot of people will get inspired from it. And behind that has to do with my fear. And the fear of, I don't think my story would be appealing to anyone. I don't think my story is good enough for anyone. So we actually initially, even before the start of the book, you actually coached me through that fear in terms of, well, what do you have to lose in terms of writing that book? And if this book is so important to you, then just go ahead and write it. So we talked about that, overcame that fear. So finally I sat down and I start writing. And you said, well, Michelle, now you're writing it. You need to set a timeline. Like, what's your timeline that you're looking at? And I thought that was a great strategy in terms of setting ourselves up for success. Because if I had not come to you, if I had not set up a timeline of when I want the book to be done, the book is probably still sitting somewhere in my computer.
Okay.
So I think the timeline is so important. So we came up with a timeline. We open up, you made me open up my calendar. Michelle, okay, so tell me exactly when would you like to have the first manuscript done? And I said, okay, so I want it to be done in 2 months, in 3 months. I think it was 3 months exact. And so 3 months to have the manuscript done. And now I have to look for an editor. I don't know where to start. So that's another piece I have to look for an editor, look for a book cover, looking to publisher. How do I publish a book? So all of that needs to be done. And that was my initial step in publishing this book. And behind all this is all that fear, all that judgment about myself. Am I good enough? Am I a good writer? Can I even write? What do I write about? I can't publish a book because I don't have anything to say. And it was just a continuous struggle and challenge. And this is another reason why I keep telling people, I encourage people to consider hiring yourself a coach, because there's so much value that you can find by finding yourself a coach. I look back, I was thinking yesterday, before we had this interview, I was thinking back yesterday, I could have so much things that's already done had I worked with a coach like long time ago.
Yeah. Well, now you have, right?
Yeah.
For someone not having anything to say, I've got 187 pages that says differently. So now the big process was leading up to the book, and now the book came out. So talk about what you've seen in the past month, the value of having a book in terms of what it's already starting to do for your business.
I think it goes back to the first email I sent you. I said, Jeff, my book is out. And then in that moment, like something just occurred to me that now I have the ticket. I have the right to ask. And that mentality, that idea of now I have the right to ask. What am I asking? I'm asking for the right to speak. I'm asking for the right to be part of the event. And I'm asking for opportunity to stand in front of a group of people, a group of women, men, to inspire them just with my book. And that to me is really powerful because now I hold the power of asking.
It's so cool to hear you talk like this because
so now I
well, no, because this is exciting because everything you're just saying is like, this has been given birth with our sessions because like you didn't understand that right that you had or that this, you know what I'm saying? And even this, some of the things you're saying now, I feel like I'm hearing as a result of our last back and forth and our last mentor coaching call of is understanding the approach that you have with people. And because you're approaching people left, right, up and down, like everywhere. And it's so cool to hear it now you've embodied it. You understand it and you have more of a conviction and a belief in it. And that's why you're starting to get the type of results that you're getting in terms of getting out there.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
And the other day, it's funny because you say embody and I actually put it into practice the other day. So I had a copy of my book. I had a business card. So there's this healthcare, health wellness center that's nearby my house. Out of the blue, I walked in with my book, with my business card. I said, hey, listen, I just published a book and I know you guys have an event. Is there any way that you can invite me as a speaker? And then I'm more than happy to speak in front of your audience. And the guy who was working behind the desk, he said, yes, can I have a copy of your book? Come. So he held my hand, introduced me to the event coordinator, and I spoke at their wellness center.
Wow.
So it was like truly embodying and believing what I do, that do matter.
And some might even call that bold because for a person starting off, they might look at that and go, oh my God, I could never do that. And you could never do that, 3, 4, even a couple months ago, right?
No.
But now you're able to walk in and you're like, I'm an author. You know what I mean? And like, I want to speak. And it's like, it's a ticket. It's exactly what it is. So Michelle, this is awesome. So as we start to wrap this up, tell us a little bit about your book. And I want to pull your website up because hopefully I want to get people to your website so they can get a signed copy of your book. But tell us about the book a little bit so people know, like you said, the story and so they understand it.
So this book, it's called Perfectly Normal, and the subtitle is An Immigrant Story of Making It in America. Basically, it's a story of myself. It's a memoir. It describes the journey of me starting at age 11 years old after a car accident. And after the car accident, I went through series of surgery, recovery, and I was only a kid at 11 years old. And through that process, I discovered there's so much judgment and there's so much discrimination and there's so much things that's going on, not only just around us, but also within ourselves. And from discovering that, how do I, with all these judgment that I have against myself, I was not showing up to be who I am. So it was almost like, putting myself into a box, and I felt confined. I felt locked. I felt really constricted. But by letting go of those judgments, by letting go of all these fear of how other people are thinking of me, of how I look, I walk with 2 arm crutches, by the way. And when you look at me, I don't look like an adult grown woman size. I'm very petite, very small. So there's a lot of, in terms of internal struggle about who I am and how I see myself with all this. So letting go of that judgment, letting go of how I see myself, I'm able to step back and look at life on a complete different perspective and knowing that, there's so much more than just how I look. There's so much more inside of me that needs to come out, that needs to be shared, that needs to come out and inspire the world. So I discovered through that journey that each one of us have a lot of strength, a lot of beauty, And that by opening up ourselves, we actually allow the magic, allow all the possibility to flow in. And it's really speaking about courage, about love, and about just vulnerability. So that's what the book is about.
Yeah. For someone who, I remember back to our first conversation, when you first hired me, and hearing your story and all you've gone through in your life, it's quite emotional, to say the least. And the triumph that you've had and the courage that you've had, I can't even put into words, honestly. And the fact that you were able to come full circle and put this into words, to share with the world, that's not an easy thing to do. And so I thank you for that, because not only do you do this for yourself, but more importantly, you're doing this for other people to give them the courage to come up. And I remember your story and how you were on that curb, right? And that was a pivotal moment for you. And you're gonna have to read the book for that. Everyone else,
right?
For what it's worth, like you had that, and we all have those pivotal moments, hopefully. And it's just, you had to decide what you do in that pivotal moment. And you chose something different. You chose a different path. And that's led you here, and now you're here taking that message and putting it out there, inspiring others. And that's what sells people, right? That's what people buy. That's what makes it specific, is it's your unique thumbprint, so to speak, on what otherwise might be a general topic. But it's the fears and the judgments that you had, the perceptions of the way the world perceived you through your story. For someone else, it's completely different. But Michelle, your courage, like, I admire the heck out of you, and everything you've done. And it's so cool to be working with you. And we're only at the beginning, right?
Yes, we're only at the beginning.
Before we finish up, let me ask you this. Well, first off, go to the elevatelifecoaching.org and get her book. It's so worth it. It will completely inspire you. It will put you to tears, because it will. And it will just change the way you look at the world. And if they go there, Michelle, can they get a signed copy if they buy it from your website?
Sure. They can absolutely get a signed copy from me. So when you go to the email, go to my website, and once you click on the link where it says my book, and you'll be able to subscribe to my email and send me an email. There's going to be a link, and it will give you the option to get a signed copy.
Awesome. Good. Yeah, because you got to get the signed copy. It's so worth it.
Or you can come to the event.
Or you can come to one of our events, yes.
Yeah.
Before we head off, and I know you've said a lot about it indirectly, but what do you think's been the biggest value for you, or some of the biggest things that have been most valuable for you with our work together as your mentor coach?
I think the biggest value is you, as a mentor coach, you don't just stand there and then tell me what to do. As a coach, there's a lot of emotional fear around starting a business, and that emotional support is only being provided as we go through and each step that we take together. So there's a lot of partnership, and you're always there being very supportive, because I remember there's a lot of emotional support that you were providing, and said, Michelle, trust me and trust yourself in doing this. So there's a lot of emotional support that you're also providing, in addition to the concrete steps of this is how you go through stuff. So the concrete steps, that emotional support, and those are just priceless to me. It's scary to start a business. It is. There's a lot of fear in starting a business. I put out the video. No one may be watching it, but I come back the next session. Michelle, are you doing your video? Yeah, I am, but no one's watching it. So we talk about it. So it's about concrete steps and that emotional support that's been very valuable to me.